Oh, there we go. Oh, oh wowzers. What a car! Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now you may well have heard the saying, never meet your heroes. Well, I'm about to put it to the test today because a couple of weeks ago, in fact pre-lockdown, I got an invite from my very good friends at Anthony James Cars to come and test drive that. Now, you may well recognise where I am. I was here earlier on in the year driving the Escort RS2000 rally car, a car that went down very, very well on the channel. And what I love about the guys here at Anthony James Cars is they always have such an eclectic mix of cars. They not only buy and sell cars, but they'll also sell cars on behalf of clients. And that means they've always got some very tasty things. And when I was chatting to the guys last time I was here, I obviously talk about all the kind of cars of your dreams and the cars of your childhood and the things that you've always wanted to drive. And you, for me as a Mini owner, always end up talking about hot hatches. And when that came in, well, they gave me a call. I have a feeling today is going to be a very good day. Now then, I want to start this video way back in the 80s. Oh, so many great things came from the 80s. The Sinclair C5, the Rubik's Cube, the mobile phone and the hot hatch. All started off by VW with their Golf GTI. But other cool things to come out of the 1980s, well, I learned to drive in the 1980s. In fact, I passed my driving test in 1989 in a Peugeot 205. Sadly, it was the diesel one. So I've always had a massive fondness for the 205 GTI. I think coupled with the fact they had the 205 T16 Group B rally car, which is clearly awesome, it's always been my favourite. My father also had a 309, which I kind of loved, but always wanted a 205 GTI. I don't know what it is about them. I think just the proportions, the styling, they just always for me looked on the money above all the other hot hatches of their era. Maybe the Renault 5 GT Turbo was up there for me as well. So when I got the opportunity to come and drive one, having never driven one, I got really excited. But, and there is a but, my real worry is I've seen these over the years at car shows and I've lusted after them in photographs and always wanted one. But what is it going to be like to drive today compared with the cars we are used to today? That's a little bit of a worry. This particular example is amazing. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. So this car is a 1988 205 GTI and it is the 1.9 litre variant. Now I'm sure most of you know that they did a 1.6 version and a 1.9 version, and the 1.9 was always my favourite. However, there is a huge kind of competitiveness between 1.9 and 1.6 owners as to which was the best one. The 1.6 had a much more peppy, revvy engine. To make this a 1.9, it's got a slightly longer stroke, maybe makes it a little bit more lazy, a little bit more torquey to drive. Power in the 1.6 was 115 horsepower, and this has an amazing 130 horsepower. So less than half of my Mini John Cooper works. Other differences, the 1.6 had the little pepper pot alloys, whereas this, I always preferred these alloys. And clearly there was also the designator on the side there. And then you've got other differences inside. The 1.6 version had a cloth interior, whereas this has a combination of cloth and leather. And we'll have a look around that inside very shortly. But this particular car has just gone through a pretty major restoration. It's had a full body respray, it's had a complete engine and gearbox rebuild, and interior wise it's had new carpets and some other new trim. So it is absolutely box fresh, it's beautiful, and it won't come out on camera, but when you get inside it, it even smells like a car from the 80s in a really good way. But it is beautiful, and the really scary thing is it's for sale. Oh yes. But yeah, I think we just have a bit of a look under the bonnet because I do want to have a chat about these power figures, because 130 horsepower in today's money really doesn't seem all that at all. So yes, underneath the bonnet then we have this 1.9 litre engine, and there's not a great deal of space under there, so it was that tight a squeeze. When you bought one of these, you could spec power steering or air conditioning, but not both, because there wasn't room to put both in the engine bay, and this car has neither. So proper back to basics motoring. But let's just have a chat about those engine stats again. So it's actually just a little bit less than 130 horsepower and about 160 newton meters of torque. Now, if I think about my Mini Roadster, that has 400 newton meters of torque. My Clubman has 450 newton meters of torque. So these performance figures compared with modern day cars are just not going to set your world on fire at all. However, this car's ace up its sleeve. So if I think about my Roadster, it weighs about 1,250 kilos. This weighs 875 kilos. My shoes weigh more than that. I mean, there's nothing to it. It's not weighed down by the modern day things you find in cars, like a billion airbags and all the complex crash structures and hugely heavy infotainment systems and big seats and electric motors everywhere. There's just, everything's manual in this car. There's no electric assistance to the seats. The sunroof's manual. Everything is just back to basics. It does have electric windows, however, but it's got manual movement for the wing mirrors. So it's all about power to weight ratio. So when I drive the car in a moment, my expectation is straight line performance probably isn't going to be that amazing, because we're so used to incredible. I think the 0 to 60 time of this is just a smidge under 8 seconds. Both my Minis will do it in kind of 5.5. So that's not going to impress me. But when I get on a B road, when I get on a nice road where I can chuck the car around, that lightweight will come to the fore and give me a really lovely driving feel. But the inside's pretty stripped out as well. Let me show you inside. Proper back to basics motoring. It's like entering a time machine. I cannot tell you how weird it is. Sitting in this car, looking over that instrument binnacle, instantly takes me back to when I was 17 years old, taking my driving test. It's remarkable. Yes, I wasn't in a 205 GTI, sadly I was in the diesel variant, but very, very similar layout. But when you compare it to modern day cars, you know, this steering wheel, there's no buttons on it at all. No airbag in the middle. There's no airbags in this car at all, obviously. You probably wouldn't want to have a crash in it if I'm honest, but ho-hum. This car doesn't have air conditioning. You've just got some heat, temperature and fan controls, and you know, you can obviously direct the airflow. It's not going to be cooled down very much. It's got a really old Blaupunkt stereo. And that's it. 5-speed manual box, reconditioned gearbox. What I love is one of the anti-theft measures is just down here. I've got like a little key and a thing that kind of blocks the gears, I guess, into a particular gear. But all the carpet's been retrimmed in here. These are the original seats with a kind of half leather, half cloth. I just think they look brilliant. They're in amazing condition. So this car, you know, it really has been put together lovely. It's beautiful. So I think the next thing I need to do is go and get some cameras fitted, and we'll take this car for a drive. And what I'm going to do is literally take you along. I've maneuvered the car from over there to here. I haven't driven it yet, and I purposely didn't want to do that. I wanted to do that on camera so that you could join me for this experience I've been waiting for what, 30 odd years. I can't wait. All right then, I have been looking forward to this for such a long time. Oh dear. Turn a key. Not come out for a while. Oh. All the things I do in YouTube, when I get to drive lovely cars, it's a very special day. When you get to drive a car you've wanted to drive for 30 years, it's a really special day. Here we go. Oh, it's got no power steering. Oh. Just going to turn the fan down a little bit. Just wait for it to warm up, come up to temperature. Oh man, so instant impressions are, it just feels so light. I mean, light both in terms of weight, but also in terms of the glass roof and the huge amounts of glass. The A-pillars are so tiny. There's such amazing visibility out of it. It just reminds me so much. I keep thinking I'll look behind, and my driving instructor used to put these little markers on the back window to help with backing round a corner. Oh wow. I'm driving a 205 GTI. These revolutionised the car market. Before Golf GTI, nobody really thought about doing it, and the Mark 1 Golf was such a success. I was doing my reading this morning, and at one point Golf GTIs made up something like 25% of Golf sales in the 80s. They were super popular, and then all the other manufacturers came to the fore, and I don't think Peugeot really up until that point had really done a hot car. All the cars were a bit boring, to be honest, but the 205 lent itself so well. So well to... Oh, I see that. Steering's so heavy. I want to just take it carefully because it's still warming up. But yeah, the 205 just lent itself perfectly to it, really. And what I love about it is obviously then they went Group B rallying, but then there were hot versions of the 309. The 309 GTI was again a 1.9, and then they did the 405. They did the MI16x4 405, and that did things like Pikes Peak. So it kind of started off a big kind of almost like a movement within a Peugeot to make hot Peugeots, and some of them were just absolutely brilliant. Oh, completely stock exhaust on this, and it does sound great. Oh man, I'm having a real moment here. I really am. Brake feels okay. I mean, again, compared with modern day cars, we're not actually going that fast, but just the engagement of the car makes you feel like you are. Oh wow. Oh, very dangerous. So this car's up for sale for about 22,000 quid, I think. Which is, I know, you know, on one hand you think that's a lot of money, but actually for this car, you wouldn't buy this car to daily. This would go into a collection, or for a car that you would have a nice, you know, enjoyable Sunday morning drive in. But what a car! So let me just take stock of what's happening here. I knew I wasn't going to be overwhelmed by the performance, but the car, for me, this car isn't about performance, it's about emotion. And for me, what I'm loving about it's that kind of taking me back to an era where I first fell in love with driving. You know, I couldn't wait to learn to drive. I had a driving lesson on my 17th birthday, 8 driving lessons later, and I passed my test. And I've never looked back. But it was a 205 I started my driving journey in, and it will always, for that reason, hold a really special place in my heart. One of the things that you will probably pick up on camera is sound ending isn't quite so great. You know, there's lots of rattles and stuff in here, but I'll forgive it for that. It's a 30-year-old old car. There's probably some of you watching this weren't even born when this car was made. It's just so analog, and I know it's a bit of a cliche when you get into an older car, you go, oh, it's analog. But it is. It really is analog. The dials are all analog. Here we go, we're getting out into the countryside to a nice bit of road now. So yeah, pull down, so that was pulling from 3,000 RPM. When you drive it, you realise very quickly why it got such legendary status. I'm driving this car with a kind of 2020 compass on, and you take yourself back 30 years and compare it to its contemporaries, the cars that were around 30 years ago, and this must have felt like a rocket ship. Oh, Wow. I'm doing it again. Anthony James cars. Daniel and Nick, you do this to me every time I sit in one of your cars. You give me just this incredible automotive experience. It's... I'm getting quite emotional actually. It's not disappointing at all. I love it. Here we go, national speed limit, down into third. So it doesn't have the instant pickup, but it is quite sprightly. The suspension's pretty good actually. As I said, they are uprated springs and dampers, so it's probably a little bit better than original. The other thing is the gearing was never really geared for mega top speed. I think this thing tops out at about 125 miles an hour. It was geared to make it peppy and sprightly and get you there quickly for better acceleration. You do have to kind of work your way through the gears a bit to make sure you're in the right gear. I think we get a bit lazy with modern day cars because they've got so much torque. You know, the torque can kind of get you out of a missed gear if you go into the wrong gear, but sounds great. Oh dear. Now then, where can I find 22,000 quid? Oh, and you can heel and tow beautifully as well. Oh, oh man alive. This thing is just lovely. Oh. Who would have thought? I think it's a gauge of how old you are, you know. When a car that was modern when you were a kid suddenly becomes a modern classic. How does that happen? How does 30 years go by? So, in conclusion, they say never meet your heroes. I now don't agree with that. Try and meet them, because every now and again you're gonna just be bowled over by them. Every now and again you're gonna anticipate what it's like to do something, get to do it, and just think, oh my goodness me. And for me today, getting to drive this car, I want to drive more cars of this era now. So anybody who's got, I don't know, a nice early Mark 1 or Mark 2 Golf GTI, I'd love to drive a Renault 5 GT Turbo. I was that far away from buying one once. A 309 GTI, they did the Goodwood version. That was always the one I wanted. Fiesta RS Turbo, Fiesta XR2, XR2i, 1300 Supersport. Anybody of my vintage, those are the cars that we wanted, and they're just magnificent. So I have to say a massive, massive thank you to all the guys at Anthony James Cars, Daniel and Nick in particular, for prepping the car today, making it look so beautiful and shiny, letting me come and drive it. I'm going to do lots and lots more with them. And they're just about to move to a new premises, so I'm going to do a video when that happens, because their new premises by all accounts is pretty special. It's a big barn, they're going to have lots more indoor storage, and I can't wait to carry on working with them. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back with the 205 GTI, and this afternoon I'm driving something else very, very special, and that will be landing on the channel on Monday. And it has a lot more horsepower than this. About 5.5 times more horsepower actually, and I'm going to be terrified driving it. But guys, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. If you have done so, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film. But you take care, guys. Drive safe. Oh, baby.